One of my most interesting wildlife encounters was back in during the winter of 2000 when we came across a group of killer whales, and they were pretty spread out. So there was quite a few of them, like at least over 20 when we first got there, it looked like, and they were spread out maybe up even a half mile to a mile in maybe small subgroups of like 5 here, 2 there. And so I first thought they were offshore type of killer whales, not the transients, because it seemed to be too many for transients, and just the behavior and how many there were and how they were spread out. So, I was very excited just because they were offshores, because we don't see them very often, maybe once a winter, once or twice, or some years we don't even see offshore. So anyway, we're getting the cameras ready because I wanted to identify as many as we could, because, we want to learn as much as we can about the offshore type. And they're the ones that we see that range all the way from Southern California up into the Bering Sea. So they're just one population. The same group of animals are down in Southern California, and the same animals can be seen all the way up into Alaska. It's not separate groups like transients. There's one type of transient that's down here, where there's different transient population that's up in British Columbia, and then you get different transients in Alaska, and it goes down. Same with the residents, they're different. So anyway, the offshores are really exciting to see, and we really want to identify all of them. There's over 300 of them. So as I started taking pictures, I was looking at them, and some of them had open saddles, so where the white goes in to the black there on the back just behind the dorsal fin, there was some black going into the white, and that's called an open saddle. So then I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of weird for offshores to have that, because very few really have that in offshores. If they do, it's very minor. So then I'm thinking, this is something really different, and I'm getting really, like, what is going on? This is like, they look like residents, because I had been working in Alaska for the last previous like 5 or 6 years at the time, and we see residents up there quite a bit, and they were starting to remind me of resident killer whales. But I thought, no, this can't be possible that they would be down here, because we've never seen any resident type. There's 3 types of transients, which are the mammal hunters. Residents feed only on fish, primarily king salmon or chinook. And then the offshore type, which I mentioned, they feed on sharks and squid and maybe offshore oceanic fish we don't know much about. So there's 3 types, ecotypes of killer whales off the Pacific coast, and maybe another type that we don't know about that much further offshore. So as I looked at these killer whales too, I was the naturalist on a gray whale trip, and so the people were getting really excited too, because there were so many killer whales, and besides there being so many, they started to get really active. They were breaching, there was some spy hopping. We saw a newborn calf with little orange marks on it. When they're first born, they're really orangey. So this killer whale calf couldn't have been more than, maybe a month or 2 old. So it was really excited, popping its little head up. It was really cute. So with all this activity, this breaching and bubbly behavior, it's like, this is really reminding me more and more of residents. So I'm like, God, this is crazy. I mean, can these really be residents? And I had not been familiar with the residents that are seen in Washington State at the time, because I hadn't worked with those. I only had been studying the residents in Alaska. So they didn't look like those, and I'm thinking, oh my God, when I get home, I've got to look in the book and see, but maybe there's some weird type of offshore, because I still thought residents have never been down here, what's going on? Or maybe there's some other type of killer whale from offshore or something, or who knows. So it was a huge surprise, because, by that time, by that year, I had been out, for the last maybe like 13 previous years, pretty much constantly. I was working a lot. I've been out, pretty much year-round for the last 13 years, and I've seen no killer whales that look like that at all. So it's like really a huge, like this huge discovery of something. So anyway, we got a lot of pictures. We tried to drive around most of the group. Then I go home that night, and I look at the pictures right away. And so I looked in the book for the southern residents, the ones in Washington State. They're currently endangered right now. And I looked and it was like, oh my God, one of them matched. And then I looked for another one and another match. I'm like, oh, this is like amazing. I could not believe it. So then I called my friend Dave Illifrit, who works with Ken Balcom up in Washington State, and I said, I'm sending you these pictures now, to confirm it, because he knows all of them by heart. He's got them all identified in his head. And I sent him these pictures, and he said, yes, it's like, part of the K&L pods. And I'm like, are you kidding? And he was going crazy too, because they had never been seen this far south before. Like, I don't even think they've been seen, south of northern Oregon before, Washington in previous years. So as soon as he saw them, then the word spread, up in Washington State. It immediately was all in the news up there and even down here. And everybody up there was worried, like, oh my God, our killer whales have left. They thought they left the area. Maybe they've gone for good, because they are, the salmon population is very low. Even back then, that was like 16 years ago. And now it's really low, the salmon. Those whales are starving to death right now, sadly. And that was the beginning of it. So we think they were traveling further to look for food, because their salmon was depleted. It still is. And since then, we have seen them almost every winter, or every 2 or 3 winters since then. If they haven't made it to Monterey Bay, they've been seen in Northern California. So that was a huge discovery, and that was like my biggest surprise of my career out in the ocean, I think, is seeing the southern residents. About 2003 or 2, early 2000s, we were out on one of our whale watching trips. I think it was in the fall, and we were watching a small group of transient type of killer whales, the ones that eat marine mammals. And we had been following them for maybe about 20 minutes or so, and they were just slowly traveling. And then we came upon a group of Risso's dolphins, like a scattered group of Risso's. They're a larger dolphin that feeds only on squid, about 12 feet long. And killer whales don't really prey on Risso's dolphins very much. There's been one time in my time out in Monterey Bay in like 30 years that we've seen killer whales attack and kill a Risso's dolphin. But beyond that, they really don't. It's not one of their main prey. So in this case, the Risso's were scattered out, and then all of a sudden, the killer whales took off porpoising. But in this case, it was the Risso's that were chasing the killer whales. It was really unusual, very strange. The killer whales were being pursued by the Risso's, because Risso's are known to be kind of a bully, aggressive dolphin. And it was like, what's going on here? And we realized it was the killer whales that were being pursued, not the other way around. And so the Risso's kind of were flanking them on the side and on the back and behind. And the killer whales were kind of grouped together tight, and they were going fast away. We were trying to keep up. And the Risso's chased after them for, I don't know, maybe it was like 5, 10 plus minutes or so, and they kind of caught up to the killer whales, and then some more Risso's ahead of them kind of blocked them, to the point where the killer whales stopped, and they were surrounded by the Risso's. And it was like they were trapped in a fence almost. The Risso's made them like trapped and bunched up. And it was like they were surrounded by the Risso's all around, and they couldn't get out. Somehow the Risso's were keeping them trapped. It was the strangest things ever. I've never seen anything since like that. And I haven't seen the Risso's do that with other dolphins before. But so they had these killer whales trapped for maybe like, it could have been up to 5 to 8 minutes or so. And the killer whales were stopped, like they were trapped in a net or something. It was so similar to that. And then all of a sudden the killer whales like broke free. And they broke free and they just fled out of there as fast as they could. And the Risso's did pursue them for a little bit and then just gave up, and that was it. But it was the strangest thing. What was going on? It was really a mystery, but very